This is the Empowered Women Show, episode number 29.
Welcome to the Empowered Women Show, inspiring women with small voices but big dreams to step up and fulfill their extraordinary potential. And now your host, Casey Lightbody.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Empowered Women Show. I'm your host, Casey Lightbody, and today I'm joined by Dorene Wharton. Now, Dorene quit her 20-year marketing career. She left her home in Canada and sold everything for a new life. She started Travel Life Experiences with her husband, Troy, which is a website dedicated to helping people who feel that they're missing out on life. They show how meaningful travel can transform their lives and the lives of others. It's truly inspiring to hear what Dorene gave up in exchange for living her purpose, and she really shares the journey that she's been on to get them to the point that they are today, traveling the world, experiencing all sorts of things and learning so much about themselves. I can't wait to share her story with you. Thanks so much for joining us, Dorene. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Casey.
So, Dorene, I'd love to dive in and go back in time a little bit. I know you've spent 20 years in corporate in a really male-dominated industry, and I'd love to really take our listeners back to that time and really understand, a bit of your background and what life was like back then.
Sure. So I spent my time in corporate marketing. So I worked for a beer company in Canada for a number of years, for actually 12 years. And then I decided at that point, there was a lot of changes going on with the company. I moved briefly into coffee, and then I went back into the industry and went into spirits. And I guess just to answer your question about what it was like, looking back now, I can see that a male-dominant industry for me was very much, it made me, but it didn't make me in not so many words. And what I mean by that is I spent a tremendous amount of time trying to fit in with a group of men who acted and worked a certain way. So it was a very type A, if that's the right kind of terminology, if people understand it, a really type A type of business, acting a certain way, being a certain way. And I did it really to fit in, and really also to fast track my way to a progressive career. As opposed to being, which I know now, as opposed to being really authentic with who I am and what I feel and what my views are on various things. So it was a great career. I actually really enjoyed it, but I know that I wasn't really being myself for so many years. And I also stayed in it for a long time. I ended up staying in an industry for a long time because I got comfortable. I got really comfortable with the culture, but I also got really comfortable because the longer I stayed in a business, the more people looked to me for information, and it made me feel smart. It made me feel like I was contributing. I was a person that they could come to and look up to, and that actually really made me feel obviously very good, and also feeling it really helped with my self-worth.
Dorene, that's, I think that's such a common thing for so many women. And I'd love to just dive in a little bit deeper into that whole idea of fitting in. So, were you really, during that time, while you were in corporate, were you really aware of that? Or was there a kind of moment in time that you're like, oh my goodness, this is actually not me? Like, when did that realization happen for you?
Yeah, it was funny because I started in this business right after university. So I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And I just sort of assumed this is the way that you're supposed to act. You're supposed to be a certain way. This is kind of business. I took it as this is business. This is how you're supposed to act and behave. And it probably wasn't until someone called me Ice Woman.
Wow.
That I realized, wow, like, is that how I'm showing up? Is that what really people think of me? Where maybe I'm someone who, and I knew I was someone who was like getting straight to the point. I was about the business. It was so important to me to do well at what I was doing. But when I heard that word, I thought, wow, like I'm certainly showing up as a person that is not who I am.
So it was that moment in time, that one word that literally triggered a change in your thoughts and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it completely struck a chord
Wow.
to say, wow, this is not me. And then I spent many years trying to figure out how to undo that.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my next question. So what was next? Like now that you realize that that's how you were showing up and that's not who you really were, what were the steps that you took? How did you start to?
I did actually start to do some coaching, some personal coaching, just to really just figure out what's going on in my head and what is, and then as a person who really wants to achieve, what are really my next steps? What should I be doing in life? And the coaching really helped because I started writing letters to myself. I started writing letters to people that I should be, that sincerely wanted to reach out to, but I wouldn't. But in that type of environment, any bit of emotion wasn't really well perceived. So I started doing those things that I would have done without being in that industry.
Okay.
And the coaching helped immensely because that allowed me to really kind of talk through and write down some of the things I was feeling.
Yeah. So that was kind of the first steps that you took.
Exactly.
But you were still in this industry then, but really comfortable. So I really get that too, as a high achiever, we're ambitious, we want to do well, that kind of thing. That is really, I think it's that external validation that you're getting from really the achievement. And that's what makes it's your self-worth. You feel great about yourself and you get comfortable feeling like that, So so you started working on yourself and really recognizing that how you wanted to show up in the world was really, being authentic and being able to maybe be softer, I guess, with the whole idea of being us, being called us women. That was really like maybe a hard in a male-dominated industry. I can imagine that being how you had to show up, really. So what, Dorene, what was it? So what was next for you in terms of how, recognizing that you were then comfortable, but not happy? Potentially, So what was there another moment in time that you realized, okay, this is actually not what I want to be doing?
Yeah, there was actually two major catalysts that happened. One was my cousin, who I absolutely adored, who was like a brother to me, went through cancer 3 times. And on his 3rd time of cancer, I'm happy to say he's still alive. He's made his miraculous recovery. But when he was through his 3rd round of cancer, I just went, oh, like, what am I doing? Mm. Like the whole getting in touch with your morality, that life is too short, really struck a chord. It finally kind of hit me and said, geez, like, this is someone who is so close to me has a very strong chance of not really achieving his dreams in life. And what am I doing? Just continuing to just run this cycle in this corporate world, day after day, doing this thing which I don't love. I don't feel it's adding any value. I'm helping. I'm marketing beverage alcohol. To me, it's a fun industry, but boy, is it really contributing to the world? Not so much. Not so much. And that was the one thing that struck my chord. And then the other thing is I ended up losing my job. So I was let go from it, and it really destroyed me personally. It destroyed me because I felt like I'm not good enough. Is it me? But in reality, I was no longer fitting in. I was no longer fitting into that world. And I would talk to myself about this corporate world very cynically, because there was many things going on in the background that I did not agree with. But those were really the 2 things that kind of made me think, okay, this is it. Like this is the time I need to make the change. And fortunately for me, I was forced to make the change. Although it was very hard to lose your job, it was the best thing that happened to me.
I was going to say, so do you think you would have changed if you weren't forced?
Eventually, yes, because it felt like, year after year, how many of us make our New Year's resolutions. And I was pretty systematic at those New Year's resolutions. So year after year, just before, the beginning of the things that I wanted to accomplish and do. My husband and I did it together, and we shared what we were doing. And then when December 31st hit, and then January 1st, and I reviewed what I did in the previous year, it felt like year after year after year, I didn't achieve half of the things I wanted to do. And I felt just gutted. And it was the little things that I achieved. So I could tick the box to make myself feel better that there were certain things like, I achieved this in work and I managed to get a promotion, or I managed to do this. But those were all the work-related, task-oriented things.
Kind of check them off the book. Yeah.
But the real, personal growth, wanting to improve my life, wanting to have a happier life, wanting to make a difference, none of those things were ever checked. So I think eventually I would have done something, but it probably would have been a much slower process, and I probably would have done little baby steps, baby steps to get there. But fortunately, or maybe it could have gone the other way, because my husband really started to move towards change. And he is the one that really convinced me to make some change as well. To try out some other things. We did a course together to figure out, hey, could we do a new business? So I think eventually I would have been there, but I had a hard stop when the job was gone.
And it's interesting, Dorene, I just wanted to go back to that whole idea of that you started your personal work really from way before that, when you were writing letters to yourself. And do you think that, the way that you started showing up was very different? So your whole mindset had changed. And as you said, you weren't really fitting in anyway. So do you think that whole idea of actually recognizing the fact that you weren't being authentic or weren't really living your truth actually started showing up in the world, that maybe that was what forced you to lose your job? Or can you see any correlation between that whole shift in mindset and actually being made redundant?
Absolutely. I see it right now so clearly. I know when I was that last year of work, I would say that I'm on board, that I agree with this, that I'm supporting this new change in the business. But in reality, I wasn't feeling that way at all. And I think I actually portrayed that. I think I actually very much, people saw that I wasn't being authentic I was saying something out of my mouth, but my face and my body language was saying something entirely different.
I often find that I think that was for me the biggest shift, is that actually recognizing that, really being able to live your truth means taking yourself on. I think that whole idea
Absolutely.
of actually being able to start working on yourself. I say, to all women who are wanting to live this, entrepreneurial journey, is that it's as much a business journey as it is a personal journey. And, for me, just being in business on my own for the last 5 years, it's just been a huge, journey and personal development. We've got to, because you are your business pretty much, and I think the fact that you actually recognize that even in your corporate role is obviously, testament to the fact that you needed to you weren't living your truth and you needed to make that change, So I would love to know now, you've actually so bravely sold everything, packed everything up, left your home country, and now traveling the world, living your dream, which I just get goosebumps thinking about. And I'd love to share with our listeners how you actually identified that was what you really wanted to do. You knew that you weren't happy within yourself. Troy, your husband, had started, talking about looking at other businesses and going through a course. What made you decide to actually pack everything up and travel?
Well, the first thing was when I did lose my job, I started looking for a new career, figuring out what I wanted to do. I as soon as I left that job and started to connect with some new people, I realized, boy, do I ever have the blinders on. We get so fixated on what we're doing at that moment, at that time in our lives. And for me, I completely identified with this career and this industry. Then I started talking to people. I started going for interviews, and then I completely realized that, wow, like I've been missing out on things. Like I had no idea some of the things that were out there. And I started getting really excited about them. And then I realized as I was doing these interviews, wow, why am I continuing to look at doing the same thing?
So what specific things, Dorene? What really, what did your eyes open up to when you started doing interviews and things like that specifically?
it really amazed me how many online businesses were out there. And I know we know this because many of us sign up for various newsletters and they're interested in things, but I had no idea there was businesses out there where people were doing, being entirely location independent.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They were running a business, whether it's in another country or at home or whatever. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just assumed everyone was in this office working, with a certain amount of staff, and it just didn't dawn on me because I had too much of the blinders on what was going on. And at that point, I actually decided, oh my God, my skill set. People in these interviews are telling me that I actually don't have enough experience. And I thought, wow, 20 years of working in marketing where it's project management, and there's a lot of transferable skills. People are telling me that I don't have the skills. It was just, wow.
That's incredible.
So I put it upon myself to try something entirely different. I did go agency side in the marketing world. And I realized that all the things that I used to hire people to do, I had no idea how to do them. I had no idea how to set up a website, no idea how to, e-commerce, social media. Yeah, I dabbled in it, but did I really understand it? So I decided to work at an ad agency to learn all this stuff. That really brought my confidence up to say, okay, what are these people saying that I don't have I don't have enough experience? I can figure this stuff out myself, which I did. And then I started doing some consulting, which just really helped again with getting some confidence. And it was at that time my husband said, hey, let's think about doing this course together. We absolutely love travel. Maybe there's something we could do in the travel industry that we could start a business together because we've been saying for 10 years that we wanted to travel long term. Initially, I was hesitant. I didn't want to spend the money. I thought, well, I'm in marketing. Why does someone else need to tell me, what I need to do for a business? But then I realized, you know what? I'm down this path of learning and growing and experiencing new things and trying new things. Let's just do it together.
Wow.
So it was a combination of all those things of getting a bit of confidence, trying something new, getting some new skills that I decided to take this leap and do this course with Troy.
That's huge. Wow. That is just such a huge decision, And so, wow. Just the courage that must have taken as well, I think, Dorene, is that's what I can't get over really, is that, I've traveled, but I've traveled in little bits, and it's been comfortable travel. I've done the whole backpacking thing when I was much younger though, and it's just, did you know that was going to be like, how did you know that you'd done that bit of travel? How did you know that that's what you wanted to, how did you find the courage, I guess, to actually take the plunge?
So we took this course together and it was an online course and we were in Ecuador at the time. So every year we took a month off. Okay. So we would maximize our bleak number of holiday days, bank them till the end of the year and go away somewhere for a month. So we'd usually be backpacking somewhere in Africa or wherever the case may be. But in this case, we were in Ecuador. So we were doing this course together online while we were traveling and on our holiday. And we started just coming up with these ideas and just believing in ourselves that, oh, we could try this. Why don't we do this? Like we can, we saw what other travel bloggers were doing and it just like, oh, we could absolutely do this. This comes so naturally to us. The benefits that we get out of traveling and what we enjoy. And we have friends that constantly ask us what we learn. What do we appreciate at traveling? Oh, how did you get the courage to do it? So I probably never would have done this if I didn't have travel in my life either, because travel was the one thing for me that changed me. It really made me see something very different in the world that I didn't get out of my life at home, because I was doing the same thing at home and I had the blinders on. So it was, that was kind of the moment where it was doing the course. And while we were traveling, we were coming up with all these ideas. And the original plan was, let's go away for a year. That was what we said. We started saving some money. At that time, we were saving money because we said, okay, we're going to go travel for a year.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, once we started coming up with these ideas, the travel that became, oh, let's do it for a year, became, why are we keeping our house? Like, are we really prepared that we're going to come back to Toronto, where we have no family? We have lots of, we've had our careers there and we've had friends there. But are we really prepared that after this, we're going to come back to Toronto? And we both said no, like, why? We're not. We've been talking about living in another country for 10 years of our marriage. We've been talking about this. Why are we holding on to this? And the holding on to the house became, why are we holding on to all this stuff? And the practical me said, well, holding on to all that stuff, if we got rid of it, actually, that's going to help us fund traveling long term.
Mm-hmm.
And having that goal now in mind of traveling long term became so easy to sell the house, get rid of the things that we have, because the emotional attachment to what those things were went away. And it completely focused on the goal called traveling longer term. So it's the goal that just completely mobilized us to make that change. And then we set out a plan. As a planning person that I am, we set out a plan that we had 1 year to sell the house and sell everything that all of the contents.
It's just so inspiring to hear, from where you were, like so stuck in that corporate job, to actually listening to where you've got to. And I'm going to dive into travel life experience because I just think it's amazing in a moment. But, listening to how hard it was back then, and just for how you talk about having those blinders on because you just didn't know anything. Dorene, I can so empathize with that because that's how we brought up. It's, you go to university, you get a job, you live the corporate lifestyle, and no one talks about that other side of things, that what's possible if you don't follow that route, and I think that's what I'm hearing now is just, the incredible courage, the questions that you asked, the real deep questions that you asked yourself as to how you actually wanted to live your life going forward, I think that's huge. And so you've come up with this business. So you packed up everything in Canada, which is amazing. You've been traveling for, is it like 6 or 7 months now?
6 months.
6 months now. And please share with our listeners all about travel life experience, because it's not just a travel blog. It's so much more than a travel blog. And I'm just so excited for what you can share and the difference that you can make for people that are feeling the same way as you and Troy were, So can you share with us, what it looks like for you traveling the world?
Absolutely. But before I do that, one thing that you just remind me of that is really important as part of the journey is we didn't do this ourselves. The new people that we started connecting with along the way really actually completely encouraged us that we could do this and kept fueling the energy to keep on going. And a couple examples is we joined a couple groups of people that were trying to change their life, trying to figure out what their career is, to start a new business. So we decided going to these meetups, and we just, you met people that are outside of your circle of your friends. And it was just so encouraging to sit in a meeting and just very socially, very friendly, and tell people what we wanted trying to do, and have people just go, wow, like that is so encouraging. Just keep on doing it. We also, we weren't travel people, but we knew we loved travel. So we decided to join this travel meetup. And all these people were, at this travel meetup, were either in the industry or they were they were travel bloggers who've been doing this for a number of years. We came to this first meeting, I'm thinking, God, we're imposters. We're pretending that we're something that we're not. And I just remember this meeting distinctly. And instantly people were saying, well, do you love travel? I'm like, yes. Well, this is a place for you. And we started talking to these people, and it just fueled the energy to keep on going and to make this thing happen. So I wanted to mention that because you can't do this yourself, because all the self-doubts and the self-talk will just break into your head. And it's the new people that you meet that encourage you along the way, that actually help with the connections and help with the motivation. I mean, there's so many things that a new community does.
Absolutely. Dorene, I'm so glad that you raised that point because, that's what we preach here at Empowered Women Revolution. It's all around connection, collaboration, community, and it's impossible. I totally agree with you on that. It's impossible to do it on your own because I think that loud inner critic can oftentimes really stop you in your tracks. I think you're really lucky that you've got Troy as a partner and maybe, you can kind of buoy each other up. But I think the whole idea of having a community behind you and really being able to open your eyes to actually, well, first of all, having the cheerleading, right? You've got people behind you saying, go for it, how amazing, all that kind of thing. But also being able to actually share experiences too. I think that's where community has come in really helpfully with me is that, they're living the journey too. So they're living those ups and downs with you. So they can really, I think the people that you start to associate with really can actually understand the ups and downs that come with the journey too, right? Whereas I think with anyone in corporate, I think it's very different. I think it's hard for them to really understand the real challenges that come with following a dream like this,
Definitely, because they're focused on their job and their career and their life, and they're not thinking about those things. And in some cases, maybe they are thinking about some of those things, some of those dreams, but it's not as though they're going to be actively sharing that with you. Mm-hmm. So it took some new connections to really just ignite it for us and keep it moving, keeping the flame lit.
Just a point on that, and we'll come back to Travel Life Experience. But with that, Dorene, how did you identify the communities that you wanted to get involved with? How did you find those communities? How did you go about looking for them? Can you share some of that with us?
It was, it's just amazing how things germinate. We love this podcaster, and he ended up interviewing this mother and daughter team who had a plan to really travel for 6 months to actually film a documentary. And we just were, wow, this mother-daughter team, this is phenomenal. They were from our hometown. They were from Toronto, which was fantastic. And they're called the Global Sunrisers. And so Troy decided to reach out to them, said, hey, we'd love to talk to you more about what you're doing or whatever. And we went to one of their events and we got to be friends with them. And they said, wow, I love what you guys are thinking of doing. What would you think about going to this, travel community meetup? We've met fantastic people. It really helped us with our journey. What do you think about that? And so, it was just, awesome. We just happened to look at a podcast and, we happened to see something on the internet, which just germinated an idea. And then, the more you look into something, the more you see some opportunities where you could be involved. And it just started from there.
Brilliant. And it's amazing how that works, is that, and I think it's taking action, right? It meant Troy actually reaching out to someone that you really admired and finding people that are actually living your truth already to be able to identify what's helped them. And I think that's amazing. That's another really good point, is just to actually do it, just to reach out, because people, are so willing to help you and give advice and share and cheerlead and all that kind of stuff that you've shared, I think, Dorene. So that's a really good point. So back to Travel Life Experience.
Yes.
Share with us what's been happening.
So I guess, what our goal is to share with people that, I guess the one thing that I really say is that travel changes you. It absolutely, and I think most people that hear that statement say, oh yeah, that I absolutely agree with it. It's also, travel for us is travel that's not for an escape. Because often we do that. We go to an all-inclusive just to get out of our regular lives, just to take a break. And to us, meaningful travel is quite a bit different than that. Meaningful travel is when you really put yourself out. You put yourself out of your comfort zone. It could be something like going to a local village in a town that you can't speak the language. You have very different, you come from a very different culture. And spending time with people, whether it's going to a local restaurant or staying in a village and really trying to learn a few words to try to communicate with someone, to listen to understand as opposed to listen to judge. And I'll give you an example related to that is we spent some time a number of years ago in Vietnam, and we ended up staying in this local village in this town. And it was just such an eye-opening experience because normally we would be scared to say a few words because we didn't know the language and we might sound silly or we didn't say it right or whatever. But that experience of putting yourself out there and trying to communicate with someone else in the world was just so powerful. It was just so absolutely probably one of the most miraculous experiences. And it's the same for just going somewhere that's totally unfamiliar for you and trying to relate and connect with people. And instead of, judging for what's different about our own community, we're just sitting to listen and understand. And we've done a number of trips like that where we've planned it ourselves. We've gone to various countries. We've tried to figure things out and stay in some local establishments, family-owned businesses to really get in touch with the culture. And what we've come back is that kind of travel just changes us. We learn patience, which we don't normally do in our lives.
What are your biggest lessons from that, Dorene? Because I think that's the biggest takeaway here is that really, as you say, meaningful travel really does change you. And you're someone who's really shown us how you want to live your truth, to really be authentic and to be able to share that with others and be able to live a meaningful life, right? Make a difference to other people. So with the travel life experience, what has been your biggest lessons learned traveling meaningfully?
The biggest one is learning just patience. Absolutely, just learning patience, learning to listen, really seeking to understand other points of view, learning minimalism. Really learning that. Traveling for several months with just a few things in a backpack is actually just so much more meaningful than having a home and having a lot of contents and stuff in it, because that doesn't identify who I am. My experiences really identify with me. And doing a trip like that, you just come back completely inspired because we're learning something like it's really being present. It's being present in a moment to really appreciate what's in front of you as opposed to what might be going on back home or what's going on at work or issues that I've had in the past that I'm still getting over with. It just puts you into a place where I completely come back transformed. I come back a different person who feels differently about the world. I feel differently about myself. I feel like I want to contribute differently than what I've done in the past.
It's incredible. And what a difference. I mean, just what a difference it's making to you personally, I guess, to your relationship with your close friends and then to the community, really being able to show what's possible as a result of that. And I totally get that coming from Africa myself, Dorene, it was actually reminded me of growing up, and really actually taking the time. I'm not sure that I really did that, take the time to really listen and understand growing up in Africa, really what that meant, so it's just interesting. It's just really reminded me of that. So,
I think the interesting point that you made is, we don't do it in our normal lives usually because we're so busy, but taking time to do a little bit of travel that allows you to experiencing something that you haven't seen or trying something new that normally you'd be too scared or too nervous or to try. And then to come back home and share that experience with someone else, that is so powerful.
So powerful. Well, actually, you raise a really good point there, Dorene, and I'd love to touch on this. It's the whole idea of comfort zone, because as shy, quite introverted businesswomen that we are as well, this is something that so many of us struggle with, is this actual steps out of our comfort zone. And you are actually having to step out of your comfort zone on a daily basis, I can imagine, because everything's so new. You've got new experiences, new challenges, new countries, so many firsts and so many new things to experience. Like, how do you manage those getting out of, like, what advice would you give people for stepping out of their comfort zone, and how do you manage that on a regular basis traveling?
Well, the first thing is immediately when someone says getting out of your comfort zone, they assume that it's about adventure, that you have to jump off a, bungee jump or jump out of a plane. And it's not that. It can be that, but it's not necessarily that. I guess the thing for me is once you try something, it gives you the courage to try something else. I remember the first time that I went to Southeast Asia, and it was probably 15 years ago, and I was scared to death. Everything was so different. But the thing is, what I got back was so powerful because I learned things about myself. I tried something. There was information that I never knew about a country that now I feel more informed. That just spurred me to do more. And so I guess my advice would be try it. You try something, just even if it's a little thing. Try something small because the payoff is so much greater than the fear that you had to do it. And you're right. I feel every single day. I have fear every single day. I'm scared of something every single day, but I try it anyway. Because I know the benefit is going to outweigh anything. And it could be as simple as booking that plane ticket and going to a country that you have no perception of what it's like there. Or it could be as simple as going to that local restaurant in your neighborhood, and trying to say a few words of Spanish, and not being afraid that, hey, I might sound a little bit silly because I don't completely know the language. So it's just every day there's something new happening. And don't get me wrong, I may not like it. I may not like it, but I'm
exactly.
going to try it.
Yeah. That's great advice. And you know what, Dorene, I want to ask you, I'm going to go back because you mentioned something earlier on, which I think is actually a really good point too, is that when you first went to that travel meetup, you felt like you didn't belong, that there was this whole idea that you were imposters, you weren't travel bloggers. Like, how do you feel now? And what advice can you give other women who are feeling the same? Because that's another very common thing I think that comes up is, I'm not expert enough, I don't know enough, I shouldn't be teaching this, or I shouldn't be doing this because I'm not an expert in this field, or I'm just pretending to be someone that I'm not. What would you say about that?
Well, the first thing is, if that's scary for you to do alone, go with a friend. First of all, go with a friend. There's nothing wrong with going to an event that you don't know and just watching and observing. You don't have to feel like you have to say something. You don't feel like you have to get up there and present something and look 100% intelligent about a topic. The biggest thing is having a bit of a passion for something or wanting to learn more about something. Yeah, just wanting to learn about something and not being afraid to do that. And I guess the best advice I would give is just, there's nothing wrong with giving that little thing a try, because that's just a little step. And the payoff of trying that is just so much better than you can imagine. And that first meetup I did, I didn't know a soul there. I walked in and they said, "Oh, what's your Twitter handle for your business?" And I was like, we just actually put something on Twitter, but we had like maybe 2 people on Twitter that I didn't even know how to use Twitter. So I put the name down so, people could, because you had to put it on your name tag that this is your Twitter handle. And I just did it anyway. It's like, oh, you know what? I'll just put it on there anyway with my name. And I just ended up meeting people and just opened up and said, I'm coming here because I'm interested. I just would like to learn more. And people asked me what I was doing. I said, I love travel. I travel every year. And I'm thinking about this maybe as a business opportunity. And the people that opened up and shared with their experiences it was just so rewarding. And I just learned so much from just being there. And I didn't feel like an imposter it was very welcoming, as any other group that I've been to has been incredibly welcoming. And that first meeting got me to go to the second and the third and the fourth, and it just the learning and the engagement and the connections with people just obviously increased after that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's two really good points that you raised there, Dorene. Is the one is actually just being authentic, like really being authentic, and actually not pretending that you know everything, or not pretending that you're there for any other reason than actually you were really honest and being vulnerable and open and honest and sharing that you wanted to learn more, that you love travel, and just speaking your truth. I think that's the biggest takeaway there. And I think the second thing is actually the steps that you take out of your comfort zone. So it's that one little step that you took, not knowing anyone, just taking that one step, and that actually then fuels the fire to take the next step and the next step and the next step. So I always talk about actually, instead of having your comfort zone as a circle here and taking a step over here, like a really huge step out of your comfort zone, it just has to be one small step just outside your comfort zone, and that really does fuel the fire, I think, to keep going and taking that next step and the next step, as you said. So I love that.
Definitely.
So Dorene, what is that? So share with us a little bit. I'd love to get some flavor around what your life feels like right now. Having lived your life, traveling for 6 months. What is following your dream and really living like this meant for you? How do you feel? Can you just give us a flavor of what your day to day feels like every day?
Sure. So just to give you a day in the life, what we do now is we've kind of planned that we will live in a country for at least a month, and then we move. And what we do there is we plan the travel. We book the places we want to stay. Sometimes we stay in homestays. Sometimes we stay in the guest houses. We book all that stuff online. We do a little research to figure out what we want to do, and then we take our cameras and video equipment out, and we learn about that place. We meet other travelers. We meet locals along the way that help us organize or help us decide what we're going to do next. And we film and write about those experiences. And so as we're on the road traveling, we're also blogging. We're also creating videos. And at the same time, we're also doing some online courses. I'm doing an online course to brush up on my writing, and Troy's doing an online course to work on his photography and his video. And it's just there's amazing days, and then there's hard days, because we're trying to live, but we're also trying to create something new for us, and also trying to enjoy ourselves. So we're trying to figure out the balance of the living, enjoying, and actually doing the work part. And so what we do is we'll travel for a few weeks, and then we'll stay in a place and actually work on the blog or the website, or create some of the videos with the content that we've developed. And you know what? There's good days and bad days, like anything. The thing that really gets me focused back on, wow, I can't believe we're here, is I have a gratitude journal. I write about what we've been able to achieve so far. Because when I write down those things, as someone who is an achiever, who really wants to progress and really want to feel like I've done something, I write down in this book the things that we've actually done. And I go back to it when I'm having a bad day, and I look at this and go, wow, I can't believe we've got to this point. We've done all this. We've sold everything. We left our country. We got comfortable with this change. And that to me just gets me right back into, wow, I'm so grateful that we did it. We just acted. We just acted on it. We focused on the goal, and we did it. And that just really helps me every day. It really helps me catapult it. The other thing that really helps me is, as we're working away, trying to figure out our website, and, we're working on some sponsorships to earn some money down the road. We're working on various projects. When I get into that zone of thinking, I'm not good enough, this isn't working, this is not happening fast enough, I go for a walk. And I walk into a village of wherever we are, and it instantly puts me back into the present. And I look at the surroundings and the things that are in front of me, and I go back to the gratitude. It's just, wow, I look where I am right now. Like, look what we've actually been able to do with our lives. and I pinching myself again. I
Oh,
can't
that's
believe that we're
brilliant.
doing this.
Yeah, that's great. I love that advice. I think that really resonates with me as an achiever too, Dorene. I think that whole idea of actually keeping a gratitude journal and actually being able to then look back on the bad, when you are having a bad day, be able to look back and say, wow, it's incredible. Look at what this is what my life looks like. Look what I've achieved. I mean, that's just so inspiring. And oh, I'm just blown away. It sounds incredible, and just hats off to you for the courage that it's taken to really follow your dream and being able to live it every day. It's just amazing, I'd love to ask you though, you touched on those bad days.
Yeah.
And I'd love to ask you, how do you get over those, do you have those moments of doubt thinking, oh my goodness, are those moments of doubt ever going to stop you, or how do you overcome, other than your gratitude journal and actually taking a walk? How do you conquer those moments of doubt?
Yeah, I mean, we all have them, don't we? It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if you're living your dreams or not. We all have them. Meditation. I've started to do meditation, which I never, back in my old past life, I never did it. I don't know why, because it probably would have calmed and quieted down the brain and the little voices in the head. And I didn't do that. I started doing that. I started very much a regime of meditation in the morning and then going to work out, and then I start my day. And it just puts the whole day in perspective. Yeah. Having some normalcy. So to create some normalcy and have somewhat of a schedule, somewhat of a routine. So the meditation has helped because I can just stop thinking for a moment and just breathe and just be for a few minutes. And then I move to the workout, and for some reason, the workout just snaps you out of anything that is in your mind, and you're focusing on the run or focusing on the workout. And those two things are have helped me so immensely, just having a routine that, it makes the day start off perfect.
Yeah, I love that. That's really good advice, actually. And so, Dorene, I'd love to wrap up because we're almost up to time now, but have you got a famous business or life quote that you live by, and why?
I do. I do have a famous business quote, and actually I've written it down and I don't have it with me, but I would, I'll start by saying, Eckhart Tolle is one of my favorite authors. And he wrote A New Earth. He also wrote The Power of Now. And I don't have the quote with me, but
we can share that on the blog. That's okay.
Yes, okay. We'll share it on the blog. You put me on the spot. I do have it, but anything that snaps me back into the power, the present moment, and reminds me of the journey of all the things that we are worried about in our past, from our past, or worried about what we need to do. And just focusing on the now, those to me have been the most powerful quotes for me, because it's really about it really matters what we're doing right now at this moment.
Absolutely. I love it. And now, do you have a famous, not famous, she doesn't have to be famous, but a woman that really inspires you? You mentioned that you really enjoyed Eckhart Tolle's work. Is there a specific woman, Dorene, that really stands out for you, that really inspires you, and why?
When I was back in Canada working in the corporate world, when I started to get on that journey of when I lost my job and I started getting on that journey of learning something new, the first person I started listening to was Amy Porterfield. And I loved what she had to say. I love what she had to say. It was one of her Facebook, courses. And she just came across as so authentic and honest and just confident in what she was saying. And I thought, wow, she's just, she moved out of her comfort zone to focus on her business and create courses for everybody to learn more about Facebook. I just really liked her style. I really liked her approach. And I thought, if she can do something like this and come across authentically, I can certainly do something that I love, like travel or talk about travel to others so authentically as well.
I love it. And she's as nice in the flesh, I can assure you. She's just the most down to earth. I love Amy. She's just gorgeous, but I get what you mean. She's really authentic and just such an amazing teacher. I mean, her skill as a teacher, I think, is just incredible, So, yeah, I'm a big fangirl too. And so, Dorene, I'd love for you to wrap up now and really be able to share with our listeners the biggest takeaway that for you actually now in terms of living your dream, being able to actually follow your truth and be able to create a business. What for you what do you think is the single biggest barrier to entry for female entrepreneurs, and how do you think we get over it?
The biggest barrier is ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The voices in our head saying that we can't do it, that we're not good enough, that, the procrastination that we do because, it's just, we're scared to try it. We're scared to make that small little move. That to me is absolutely the biggest barrier that we have. Mm-hmm. And then we hear other people that, as the example I said is I went for an interview and I had someone actually tell me that I don't have the experience after so many years of working in something and that my skills are not transferable. You can't listen to that.
No, absolutely.
No, you can't listen to those things. You can't listen to that criticism because in your heart, you have the opportunity. It just is yours. Just take it.
Just grab it, right? Yeah.
Just grab it.
Yeah, I love that. Dorene, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. And where can everybody find you and Troy online?
We're at travellifex.com. That's our website. And thank you so much, Casey. I really, really love this. Really loved our discussion. I really hope what comes out of this as people feel like normal, conservative people like us can do this. You can too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, my special friend. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much, Casey.
Take care. And that wraps up another episode of the Empowered Woman Show. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And if you have a chance and you enjoyed this episode, it would really mean the world to me if you would head on over to iTunes and leave me an honest rating and review of the show. That way, you'll help boost rankings and really shine the spotlight on these amazing women guests. You'll find the link in the show notes over at www.empoweredwomenrevolution.com. Thank you so much and see you next time.